Hello and welcome to another edition of Football Express. I'm Stephen Looney and joining me in the studio today are Tim McCann and Mark McIntosh. Both very welcome, gentlemen. As ever, a quick recap of the weekend's results, last weekend's results in the Sports Direct Premiership. Last Friday night, October 4, Linfield 1, Glentoran 3. Saturday, October 5th, Ballymena United 4, Loughgall 1. Carrick Rangers 2, Cliftonville 0. Crusaders 2, Coleraine 1. Glenavon 2, Portadown 1, and on Sunday, October 6th, Larne 0, Dungannon Swifts 3. Looking forward to this weekend, again in the Sports Direct Premiership. Saturday, October 12th, Carrick Rangers against Coleraine, Crusaders versus Linfield, Glenavon versus Ballymena United, Glentoran against Dungannon Swifts, and Portadown against Loughgall. Tim, we'll start with you. Have it down here. The Sky Blues are reaching for the stars right now. 11 games played and they're top of the tree. Dungannon Swifts are going well as well. I'm just saying here, there are three teams, Linfield, Crusaders and Larne, can overtake Ballymena if they win their games in hand. But it just shows how crazy this league has been so far. And I want to ask about the two provincial teams, both Ballymena United and Dungannon Swifts. How's it come about and can they sustain it, Tim?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's a flash in the pan. Winning 2 or 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row, and a couple of draws, maybe a loss, you would think maybe a flash in the pan. But the way they've sustained it, I think, including Tuesday night's County Antrim win over Cliftonville, Ballymena, have won 10 in a row. It's phenomenal, the turnaround. And, we were talking about the complete opposite last season with Jim Irvine, but it just goes to show you when you give someone a bit of time, you give him, a bit of money, he's able to bring in certain players, play his own style of football. I think he's done a remarkable job. Very shrewd signing in Ben Kennedy. And you know what? They've deserved to be where they are. They deserve to be top of the table because they're the most consistent team in the league. And then you look at Dungannon as well. I mean, Dungannon's win against Larne on Saturday, I mean, they were well worth the 3-0 win. It wasn't, that Larne missed loads of chances and Dungannon were hanging on and maybe caught them on the break. Dungannon have been playing extremely good football, and we all know how good a coach Rodney is. And again, as I say, they're up there on merit, and I can see them sustaining this for a while yet.
Thanks, Tim. Mark, Tim's right. I mean, last year, Jim Irvine and Ballymena endured a miserable season. They only avoided relegation through the playoff victory over Institute. They lost 4 games in a row, and now, as Tim says, 10 straight wins in all competitions. Funny, the last time they were defeated was against Dungannon Swifts. So what about the two teams? Your assessment, what have you seen? What's changed?
I think for Ballymena, it's obviously the players Jim's been able to bring in. As Tim rightly said, there was a few quid thrown at it in the summer, which was needed. And Jim's brought in a lot of experience. I think for me that's a big thing. A bit of quality in Ben Kennedy, who has a lot of experience, but experience throughout the pitch as well. And he was helped certainly with Coleraine going full time. He was able to bring a lot of players in from Coleraine. Penny for their thoughts as well. A lot of their players leaving to go to Ballymena, and Ballymena are now flying, and Coleraine are obviously very inconsistent. But I think the big thing for Ballymena is at the start of the season, they were almost the butt of jokes because Larne hadn't kicked the ball and they were still above Ballymena. And these 10 wins have probably surprised everybody, including Jim. But it's not just Ben Kennedy scoring goals now. For the first sort of 5-6 games they were winning, it was all Ben Kennedy. Now they're sharing goals around. And to me, if they're going to sustain this, that's what they have to do. Whereas Dungannon, this isn't an overnight thing. You could see signs of this last season. Rodney did a great job at Glentoran, and a lot of Glen men would have loved Rodney to have stayed, but he decided to go back to Dungannon, and he's just slowly but surely been building this. I've seen them a few times this season. I like how they play football, and if they can get just a few more goals on that side as well, on a regular basis, why shouldn't they be able to sustain this?
Well, funny, I've probably seen more of Ballymena United of the two teams we're talking about, Mark, and at the start as well. Obviously, everybody's talking about Ben Kennedy. He's caught fire for sure. I have to say I was a wee bit worried or unconvinced about Ballymena's defence at the start of the season. And Jim seems to have swapped. More often than not, he's taken Stevie O'Donnell and Keelan Loughran out, and he's put in Dahi McCallion and Kim Nelson. Dahi McCallion has been very impressive for me, I think. So I think that's tightened things up at the back and given Ballymena the platform. Dungannon, as you say, Rodney works his magic, makes it a happy place to be, spots young talent and brings them on. John McGovern's been an excellent acquisition. But can they sustain it? And what about, I mean, I was going to come on to, what about the other, like the bigger clubs who are stuttering for sure? You know, Linfield, Cliftonville, Glentoran, Crusaders, up and down, Coleraine as well. So, like, we're now 11 games in or thereabouts. Are we seeing a pattern emerging here yet, Mark?
I don't think you will do. Not until probably Christmas time. You know, it's easy for us to sit here now and say, you know, the likes of Dungannon and Ballymena can keep this up. And yes, they can. The likelihood is, are they going to be in a title race? I mean, come the end of the season, I don't think they will be in a title race. I think the quality will shine through eventually. But as you say, we're 11 games in. You know, that has to start pretty soon. And it's just so much inconsistency throughout the league. And while Dungannon and Ballymena are being consistent, you know, it's building up that sort of little bit of a lead, and as everyone in football would tell you, you'd rather have the points on the board than looking at games in hand.
It's going to come down to their squad depth. You know, I think if they can get through to Christmas and Jim or Rodney say, listen, you know, I have a strong starting 11 or a strong 13. If we can get stronger boys even for the bench, so that if we do hit an injury crisis or we do get an injury of regular first team players, that we have people there to cover. And I think that at this minute in time, that's maybe the only thing that could hamper them. You know, you look at Linfield the minute they're struggling with injuries and they're putting kids on the bench. The same with Cliftonville, they've been struggling with injuries. It's going to happen to all clubs, and it's going to depend, I think, on the depth of your squads. And if they can get through to Christmas, early January with, you know, keeping the same form up and without getting any mad injuries, you know, I think there's no reason why they can't sustain it.
You look at Lauren's squad, they have that strength and depth. You know, their bench is just an embarrassment of riches. But then they're completely inconsistent as well. Yeah. It's just, like I said last episode, it's just a bonkers league.
Yes, well, we're going to come on to the other teams in a minute, but Tim, I want to pick up on something you said as well. Jim Irvin got a fistful of dollars in the summer. Transfer coup of the summer, Ben Kennedy. I think you're right, Tim. The guys at Ballymena are in cloud nine at the minute. Jim might go to the boys on the board and say, let's go again. Yeah. And he might get a fistful of yen this time.
Strike while the iron's hot, you know, absolutely. You know, board members, owners, investors are all happy when they're sitting where they're sitting. You know, if I was Jim, I'd be getting in right now and say, listen, you know, this is where we are. You know, we need to strengthen this. We can't just sit and rest on our laurels and just be happy and think that it's just going to happen every game. It doesn't work like that. You know, there will come a time where they'll potentially have a blip or they'll lose a game. You know, how will they react? How will they react to that? You know what I mean? That's the other bit, the other side of it as well. But I think you're right. You know, just strike now while the iron's hot. Go and speak to the owners, see if there's any more money out there, and start targeting players now. You know, don't wait till January, because by that stage they'll already be gone.
Thanks, Tim. And just sort of finish off on this, Mark. The reason I, you know, say I maybe favour Ballymena to endure longer than Dungannon is because Dungannon don't have a lot of readies about them. You know, Ballymena may or may not. They certainly may probably have more than Dungannon. And I think it's important to say that, you know, for these two teams, this is already uncharted territories. You know, they're not aiming to win the league. You know, if Dungannon finish in the top six, that's a magnificent season. Probably Ballymena as well. So let's have a look at the other teams now. I'm going to talk about the fixtures. Saturday, Crusaders against Linfield stands out for me. Mark, what about the Blues? We've alluded to it now. They are stuttering, there's no doubt about it. I have to say, there are some clubs that are suffering really bad injuries this season, and Linfield are one. Now, I spoke to David Healy after the County Antrim Shield game. Crusaders won 3-2 the other night. You were at it yourself, Mark. David wasn't making excuses, but he's exasperated about the amount of injuries he has. Lost at home to Glentoran last weekend. Tough times for the Blues.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people could see some of it coming as well. You know, yes, there are injuries, but every manager will tell you they have injuries, and you know it impacts what they're doing. I think Linfield are struggling to put 90 minutes together in a single game. You know, the Glentoran game was a perfect example. I thought Linfield were very good first half, then just didn't appear for the second half, and Glentoran deservedly, very deservedly, took all 3 points. And I think David would be concerned about several things. The thing that really struck me was Glentoran just simply looked like they wanted it more. And I don't think there's any excuse. You can talk about injuries all you want at Linfield or any other club, but when the players sometimes look like the opposition want it more, I think that's concerning. I think it's something David will have to grip very quickly. Now, history tells us that he does grip things like that very quickly, and they very rarely go on a long run of maybe games without victories. But there's work to be done at Linfield. I think some of the bigger players have to step up as well. Again, injuries. Stevie Fallon is a massive loss to Linfield, but you'd like to think, because Stevie's been injured so often in the past sort of 18 months or whatever, Linfield should be used to having another option or trying something different. But I think there are a lot of concerns at Linfield. Will they get it right? I wouldn't be surprised at all if David Healy did something to get it right. But I think they have to just try and stay in touch up until January, and then let's see what Linfield are going to do, because there's a lot of rumours doing the rounds that there might be outside investment come January. And I think David Healy will know that the investment will have to be made in that team in January, regardless of where they are.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to explore this a bit more, Tim, and come to you. And I'm referencing the Big 2 game last weekend. You were in the cockpit. As Mark says, I think Mark is absolutely right. The cliches came true. It was a game of two halves. I thought Linfield bossed the first half, didn't put away their chances. And then Glentoran came out like men possessed, I thought, in the second half, and were good value for the win, in my opinion. So, and I think Mark's right about, it was disappointing if you're a blue man to look at the team in the second half and say, where's the heart? But at the same time, Tim, again, I go back, I watched that team on Linfield on Tuesday night, and initially I thought this is a shadow team, this is like the Swifts team, because they're preparing for the league game on Saturday. Yeah. But David said, I don't have any other players. Like, there was the boys stretch it off, Callum Thompson stretched it off on Tuesday night, Rhys Annett was stretched it off the previous Tuesday, Ryan Mackay, it really is the walking wounded. This is to add to the players that are already injured, Tim.
Yeah, I think it's harsh to say that Linfield didn't try in the second half. I really genuinely do. We had a game plan at Windsor Park, and Windsor Park is a massive, massive pitch, right? And we like to obviously play a high pressing game. It's not sustainable for 90 minutes. So we had to be wary of when we pressed and when we didn't. And I think we just showed Linfield probably too much respect in the first half and let them have the ball too much. And Linfield, rightly and deservedly, went ahead and probably could have scored another one or two. I thought the longer the first half went on, we started to come into it, because we started to push up the pitch a little bit more. And the second half time, Daggy spoke to the players and said, right boys, let's go. Shackles off, let's go for the throat. Let's press them all over the pitch. Everybody goes. And to be honest with you, James Singleton was like a man possessed, and he led it, the press. Everybody, damn man, pressed the ball. And I think we just outworked them, outfought them. I don't think it was because Linfield I think we caught them on the hop. I think they were shell-shocked. And to get an early goal, goals change games. Jay scores 4.5 minutes into the second half. And I just thought we had the momentum and just went on the ascendancy. Listen, they did have kids. I think they brought Chris McKee off the bench. They made a couple of substitutions, but they just didn't have the depth. And they've got younger, probably fringe first teamers, reserve team players on the bench. And I probably understand last night that maybe they thought the Crews were going to potentially rest some players last night for the big game on Saturday. But I just feel that, I'm only talking personal experience, when we played under Roy Coy, you play your strongest team every week. It's that simple. And we played on Tuesday night in the County Antrim Shield, and we played against Carrick Rangers home, and we played 99% of our strongest team. And I think you've got an eye, just start playing your strongest team, and if you get injuries, you get injuries, but just take the next game. Planning's easy. It's easy to plan another game, but I think you're just better solely focusing on the game that you have in the next game, and then let the next game will take care of itself. Whatever personnel you have, then you deal with it and you train on it.
Well, just on that, Tim, and looking at the game between Crusaders and Linfield, it's a very valid point you bring up, because pretty much Declan Cadell, he's taken over the summer, he's pretty much played the same team throughout the term so far. Crusaders had their wobble. They lost 3 games in a week. They didn't score a goal. Declan was quick to point out during the week, in the last 4 games they've scored 12 goals. And Linfield are like the walking wounded at the minute. So how do you see this game panning out? Could we read anything into the 3-2 victory for Crusaders on Tuesday night?
Well, and certainly if you're getting into the game, I would be more happier being in the Crusaders dugout than I would Linfield, because for me, all the pressure's on Linfield. It's at Crusaders. Everybody knows how difficult place it is to go. a deserving victory on Tuesday night, and Declan Cadell will be saying, boys, same again, let's go again. And it's up to Linfield to try and dig out or roll on the pitch, whatever bodies they have. And as Mark says, they always bounce back somehow or somewhere. And I think Saturday they have to do it, they have to turn up. But I think it'll be a fantastic game. But I think the Crews just have the edge at the minute.
Thanks, Tim. Mark, your thoughts from the game on Tuesday night in terms of a dress rehearsal for Saturday's game?
I think it's difficult in terms of what it means for Saturday. If David Healy is saying he's down to bare bones and that is what he has, then okay, you can read into it. I suspect there'll be a few more experienced heads maybe available for Linfield on Saturday. Sometimes managers, you'll know better than me, Tim, but sometimes managers don't tell you the entire truth after games, and understandably so. But if I was Crusaders, I'd be confident. I like what Decky's doing so far. Even his attitude when they went through that sticky spell in that 1 week of 3 losses without scoring, I thought he was level-headed about it. He was, he knew the situation they were in, and I think he's aware that somewhere down the line during this season, Crusaders will go through another spell like that. But you can see, Kieran Offord is a good example. He started the season on fire, maybe tailed off a little bit, maybe trying to do too much at times. But then up steps Harry Franklin, and you can see a massive growth in him even in the last couple of weeks. When I look at the Linfield team, I don't necessarily look around and go, right, well, he's getting better as things go on, he's getting better. You're looking at Kirk Miller and you're looking at Joel Cooper and you're kind of thinking, you're relying on them to produce a moment of magic. Linfield strikers are struggling to score goals. If I was Crusaders, I'd be very confident. Now, they won't say it out loud, but I'd be very confident getting into Saturday.
But then you look at even the game before, it took a 97th minute winner.
And again, a moment
of magic from Kirk Miller, or else they would have drew nil each with Carrick. And again, it's great to have those kind of players in your team. It really is. Cooper, Miller, I think they're two of the best players in the league by a country mile. They're fantastic. And you just worry that if they do sustain an injury, who's there to replace them? Do they have anybody? I don't think there is anybody, even in the league, that could replace the likes of Miller and Cooper.
Well, in fairness, and I'm going to come back to Mark on that because I'm going to ask you, and then I'll ask you again, Tim. We know that David Healy and Linfield are at their most dangerous when their backs are against the wall. You write them off, and David Healy just soaks it up and uses it to motivate his team. Now, they do have other options as well. Charlie Allen, I think, has been very, very good this season, and recently when I've seen him, very lively. Matthew Fitzpatrick, while he's not getting the goals of a prolific number 9, I think the work he does, and like you can see it now, the help he does for the other guys as well. So, can Linfield use this, and will there be a backlash against Crusaders, or if that's not going to happen, what do you think's wrong at Linfield?
I think the backlash will come. Whether it's against Crusaders or not, it's another story, but it will definitely come at some stage, because David does galvanise everybody, and we've seen it before. You're right about Charlie Allen. You can see him growing. He's back in the Irish League. I'm sure it was a difficult summer for him too. A lot of disappointment leaving England, and that always takes a bit of time. Again, you're right about Fitzy. He's actually a player I feel really sorry for. He does a lot of the ugly work that no one looks at. He will never get credit for it. He'll just be criticised because he's not scoring goals. And the reality is, Fitzy probably has to be more selfish if he's going to score goals, but he's playing to a certain system and he can't be selfish. But if Fitzy just got in the box, he's shown us at Glenavon, he scores goals, but that's not going to happen at Linfield.
Going back to the game on last Friday night, a lot of the balls were being played up to Fitzy, and he was causing all sorts of problems. He was flicking balls on for runners to make third man runs, and I thought he was outstanding in the first half. And then the game kind of flipped on its head. But isn't it mad that we're sitting here talking about a Linfield crisis and they're sitting 1 point off first place? It's madness. There's no crisis there. I'm sure David's probably looking at the press going, what is going on? They've lost the County Antrim Shield game, they lost the league game, and they're 1 point off first place. I wouldn't be panicking. Listen, everybody does it, and because of who Linfield are and what they've done, but Linfield have proven people wrong so many times in the past. David Healy has proven everybody wrong so many times in the past, and you said it, he has a way of galvanising the team. You have too many leaders in there, and Jamie Mulgrew and Chris Shields, who can, if it means sitting down and having a meeting among players and say, right boys, listen, we haven't been on our best last couple of games, let's dig in, let's everybody dig in together, circle the wagons and let's go again, and they'll turn it around. There's too many good players there in that club, you know.
I totally agree with you, and I fully expect Linfield to turn things around. The only thing I will say is, speaking to a lot of fans as well, some of the things we're seeing now are things they could see last season and maybe even the season before. And there's a trend at Linfield. Listen, if I can see that and fans can see that, David Healy can definitely see that.
They've got to take into account that other teams are going to get better. You can't always be sitting top of the table and winning. It's not that easy. Winning's not that easy. Winning leagues isn't that easy. Winning games isn't that easy. And we've said it every year. We've sat in this show and we said at the start, this year is going to be the hardest league ever because everyone is up their game. Any team can beat any team, and that's just the way it is. And so you've got to roll with the punches. Supporters have got to say, look, this is the way it's going to be. We're going to lose to some bottom 16. We're going to lose games, but that's part and parcel of football.
Roll with the punches is a good line, though, Tim, because other teams are improving, and you can see that. And it's not just Lauren improving; it's everybody. Then Linfield can't keep doing the same things they've done for the last couple of years. They have to roll with the punches, and they have to change. I don't see enough of that change at the moment.
But is that through David, or is that through up above? Do you know what I mean? I'm just asking. Sometimes people's hands are tied. Is there a budget there to go and
in fairness, I think
invest?
You're right. There isn't a crisis at Linfield necessarily, right? But there is concern, you know, inside, you know, because of what they're seeing at the minute, because of the injuries they have, and also there's the fear of Larne. You know, Larne have put the fear into Linfield. You know, with what they've done, they've gone ahead of Linfield, and Linfield, I think, at times haven't known how to react. I think Linfield, for me, the biggest thing for Linfield is the injuries. I actually do believe that they're genuinely shorn of some top level. They have about 8 first-team regulars out, unavailable to them. But now, just to finish this off as well, there's another aspect to this game that we're talking about, Crusaders against Linfield. Jimmy Callagher, Jordan Stewart, 2 players that were with Linfield, come into Crusaders. Both have had long-term injuries. I don't know about you, Mark, but I liked what I saw on Tuesday night. 2 of them were bringing their A game back.
Jimmy Callagher is a massive player. I think it was last season, Crusaders went on the first 4 or 5 games and they looked unbeatable. Jimmy Callagher gets injured and bang. You know, he just controls that whole back line. He has such an influence in the change room, such an influence on the pitch. He's great from set pieces, offensively, defensively. And Jordan Stewart on his day, you know, we all know the capability that he has, and obviously get into this game too, those 2 will be out to, you know, maybe to prove a few people wrong.
And just finally, yes, I think we've agreed Linfield have a very potent offensive line if they can call upon them all on Saturday, and Crusaders are quite good at the back. Now they've got Jimmy Callagher back, and also Robbie Weir's been excellent when he's played into the back line for Crusaders.
Yeah, and he had a bit of a rest on Tuesday night as well, obviously. He was on the bench, came on the second half, but Jimmy will add a lot. You know, I like again how Decky's been able to manage him, bringing him back slowly but surely, you know, and you can see his confidence growing again. And Jordan Stewart is just a joy to watch when he has a smile on his face. And what I've seen so far, Crusaders, he certainly has that love of football back again. You know, trying wee tricks on Tuesday night and everything. The Jordan Stewart you love watching. And I think the season could be very good for Jordan in particular.
It's down to the manager getting players to enjoy their football. You can have the best players, or you can have really good players, but it's hard to get that magic out of them. And obviously the way Dacky, you spoke about it earlier on, Dacky seems very calm. He seems great on the sideline. You know, he's obviously wasn't, you know, concerned about them maybe not winning in three games. But then they go and beat Linfield on Tuesday night. You know, so obviously what he's doing and his persona and how he's managing the players working.
Thanks, Tim. On to your game now. Glentoran against Dungannon Swifts. We've spoken a bit about Dungannon Swifts. John McGovern's been a good acquisition, as we said, but the goals are coming from everywhere, all over the park for the Swifts. Glentoran up and down. What I was going to say to you earlier on, you know, come off the back of a great win against Linfield in the league last weekend. Can you sustain it against maybe, you know, when the game is not so high profile?
Yeah, I mean, Tuesday night was a perfect example. You're always worried coming off a big 2 win, and is everybody too hyped up? But it was a great professional performance against a good Carrick team. A lot of ex-Glentoran players there. It was a tough game, but boys we thought the same amount of effort and work in that they did against Linfield. So, you know, we've said to the players, that's the bar set. That's the minimum that we expect every single week. And hopefully against a really good Dungannon team, it can be the same. But make no bones about it. Rodney coming back, and it's going to be a difficult game against a team that's flying. But we have just got to build on, hopefully, on our last two performances and just keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully the work rate. I believe if you outwork or outrun any other team, I think your chances of winning increase significantly, and that's what we're aiming to do.
Thanks, Tim. As we said, Tim's obviously got a perspective on this game, Mark. You're completely objective. How do you see it panning out? It's intriguing, I think, really. Because of the fact that Dungannon Swifts are going so well and Glentoran have come off. Like Glentoran, like a lot of clubs this year, inconsistent. Yeah. But this game, it's fascinating for me. To
me, this is the game of the weekend. Like we said earlier, I love everything Dungannon have been doing. The Glens, what I saw against Linfield, I would be quietly excited if I was a Glen man, because as Tim says, when you get the work rate and you get all of that to go with the talent that's clearly in the squad, it's a good combination. The fact that Jay Donnelly scored a good goal against Linfield, you could see he looked 10 foot tall after it. And if we can get Jay Donnelly firing, we've seen in the past what a great player he is and what a great goal scorer he is. But the challenge for Glentoran every single time is, can you match that level of desire and quality that you show against Linfield? Can you do that on a regular basis? At the minute, I wouldn't be massively convinced that they will do that, because I haven't seen anything to suggest that will happen. But of course it could happen. I like some of the signings. I have to say, like Frankie Vid, he's had some tough times this season, but I like him every time I see him. We talk about attitude and mental toughness. My God, he's got mental toughness in him. Anytime there's a mistake, he bounces back. I think he's been a super signing, and the goalkeeper as well. Yeah. He pulled off some brilliant saves against Linfield, and when you have a quality goalkeeper like that, if he can do that all season, Glentoran are going places.
No, it helps, and credit to, you mentioned Frankie there. People forget he's only 19 years of age. And he's coming into a league that's foreign to him. He's maybe been playing under 21 football over at Millwall, wherever he's been playing under 20s. But to come into a league, I think he's starting to kind of show what he can do. And we were all over the moon for him. His whole family were over in the Big Two. And when he scored that goal, you could see the elation and the relief in his face as well when he done it. So long may it continue for Frankie.
Tim, you mentioned Carrick earlier on when you played them during the week there. They're playing Coleraine at the weekend. We know Stuart King has departed the club. They ended a run of 8 straight defeats last weekend, beating Cliftonville. Stephen Baxter has now been announced as the new manager. What impact will he have? Will there be the old, what we talk about as the dead cat bounce? And also Coleraine, up and down, inconsistent as we've discussed. But there's a lot to like about them, in my opinion. Having seen them last Saturday against Crusaders, they were kind of unlucky to come away with a defeat. Yeah,
Coleraine are, Dean Shea's a good manager. They've got great players there. I know they have a couple of players out injured as well, but Coleraine are a good footballing side. They've got players that can change games and turn of hat, and Glacken and Shelvlin, and if they're on form, then it's, you look at even the chances they missed. I think when they were drawn at CV, Glacken misses a gilt-edged chance. Goals change games. To score that, they might come away with a win or at least a draw. But just watching Carrick on Tuesday night, they've some really good players. The camaraderie is definitely there. They work their socks off. Great win against Cliftonville, and with a man like Stephen Baxter, who's known for his man management and getting teams to play well. I think it suits him down the ground. I think it's a perfect signing.
Thank you, Tim. Carrick, Coleraine, Stephen Baxter, knowing Stephen and what he brought to Crusaders all those years, I certainly think there'll be a lift. Absolutely. I think he'll go in there. His man management's great, his motivation's superb. It seems to be, for whatever reason, they've been in the doldrums or a bit low, a bit flat. I think it'll be, certainly in the short term, a very good appointment, Mark. Yeah,
I agree. I think it's the perfect appointment. There's not many managers get talked about the way Stephen does in terms of when players sign for him. They instantly want to run through a brick wall for him. So I think he will give that changing room a huge lift. Look, we've talked about Carrick before. Everyone thought they made decent signings in the summer, brought in a lot of quality and experience. And it hasn't worked. Just for whatever reason, everything Stuart was doing last season seemed to work at Carrick. The messaging just didn't seem to work this year, and that just sometimes happens in football. It's no one's fault. But you could see even from last week, how many times we've seen it in football. manager leaves, and then all of a sudden there's this incredible win. I think Stephen will go in there. He might have to rattle a few cages as well. You know, with so much experience in the team, sometimes, you know, you might have to do that. He's certainly big enough to do that. He's shown before he can do it. And I agree with you. I think we're going to see an upturn in Carrick's fortunes quite quickly. Thanks,
Mark. Sort of looking at the other couple of games there. Glenavon against Ballymena. We've talked extensively about Ballymena, but Glenavon, after a very, very dodgy start, Stevie McDonald starting the plan, starting to come together a wee bit, or they're getting a few points. And also Portadown against Loughgall. The Villagers won their first league game against Carrick, but have lost 8 and drawn 2 since. They're rock bottom. Ports will want to bounce back from losing to Glenavon. So the Mid-Ulster teams, Glenavon against Ballymena and Portadown against Loughgall.
Yeah, look, Glenavon deserve a lot of credit. You know, they're very sort of quietly gone under the radar. Maybe not winning loads of games, you know, there are quite a few draws in there. But that's what they needed. We spoke on this show a few episodes back, I think, and we said they just need to put that run together. You know, they were winning one maybe and then, you know, losing a couple, and, you know, it's very hard to build any sort of momentum. But you can see the confidence now. You can see Davy McDade scoring a few goals, Michael O'Connor's coming to the party. There's so many elements at Glenavon are starting to come together. I still don't think it's going to be a vintage season for them. You know, I think this is going to take time, and I think Stevie has to be given time to do that. In terms of the other game though, Portadown for me have been very good this season. I don't think their points total reflect actually how they've played. Now they're going through a bit of a sticky spell just at this moment in time. Now we'll see what they're made of, but they'll look at that game against Loughgall, and, you know, with all due respect to Loughgall, they're having a bit of a nightmare at the moment. You know, if Portadown want to make an impression this season, they have to beat Loughgall. There's no other way about it.
Thanks, Mark. There's no doubt Loughgall are in a bit of trouble at the minute. Now, we've seen clubs in trouble this season before and then take off. So, Tim, again, same as Mark, again, we've spoken about Ballymena. Glenavon, can they halt Ballymena on their home patch, and Portadown against Loughgall? Loughgall, they are struggling at the minute. They may change that, but they can expect no favours whatsoever from Portadown in this Mid-Ulster derby.
Glenavon, I think they're 8 games unbeaten now in all competitions. It's a fantastic record, it really is. You know, obviously getting that late winner against Portadown on Saturday will certainly give them a bit of confidence. Loughgall, it just takes one game to turn your season around against a very good Portadown team who can rallies playing on a pitch like that. I think it'll be a ding-dong battle. I fancy a 2-2. I fancy a high-scoring game, I really do. And I think Loughgall will. I don't think Loughgall will lose on Saturday. I think they'll get something from the game.
Okay, Tim, Mark, that kind of about covers it for this week. So all it leaves for me to do is to thank you, Mark and Tim, and thank you for joining us as ever. That's us for now. We'll see you the next time on Football Express.